the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book Ultimate Profit Management. No other than Mr. Manny Skevofilax. Sorry if I mispronounce your last name, but tell us, Mr. Manny, more about yourself.
No worries about my name. I've been having that happen all my life. But thank you for having me on your show, Daniel. It's
Yes,
lovely to be here. and,
yes.
my parents were born overseas in Greece on an island and a very beautiful place, but very poor. And after World War II, they immigrated to America and they actually met here, which is interesting. They didn't know each other back on the island. They
Wow.
got married and they ended up in the restaurant business. So we grew up in business at a very early age, as a lot of ethnic people did back in that time. So we were exposed early, and I made a career change from the restaurant business into banking when I was 29 years old to try to do something different because restaurants have long hours and you're married to them.
Yes.
And then after 10 years of learning in banking, Daniel, I hung out a shingle as a business consultant, specifically an outsourced CFO. And I've been working the last 22 years helping business owners grow their businesses profitably.
Mr. Manny, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. Efkaristopoli, as
You're
the
welcome.
Greek said. So let's talk about
Paracalo, that is impressive.
Parakallo. Yes, yes, yes. So let's talk about ultimate profit management. What's one outdated belief about business profitability that ultimate profit management dismantles?
That just because you're growing the sales in your business, it's going to be automatically profitable. And
Mm.
a lot of times the opposite happens, Daniel. You grow the revenue, you grow the sales, and you actually make less money. So you grow from like $1 million in sales to 2 million, and you make less money at 2 million than you did at 1 million.
Why is that? Can you explain to us more about that, Mr. Manny?
Sure. In my experience, Daniel, we get so caught up with the glamour of sales that we don't look as hard on the expense side. With increased sales comes increased expenses. Your head count goes up, your inventory goes up, your delivery costs go up, and you have to keep a very sharp eye as you're growing so you can maintain your margins.
Yes, indeed. So, how does your approach redefine profit beyond just a financial metric?
Well, profit is the lifeblood of the business. It's what keeps you going, makes the business sustainable, allows you to hire great employees and give them bonuses, um, allows you to buy equipment, allows you to take some money home, allows you to make charitable donations to your community. Therefore, it has to be the number one thing that you're looking at as a business owner in order to stay healthy.
Mr. Manny, you emphasize ultimate over traditional profit tactics. What are the critical mindset shift required?
Oh, that's a great question. One of the ones I run into very frequently, Daniel, is it's okay while we're growing. It's okay to lose a little bit of money. You know, we'll return to profitability later. It's not okay. The owners are not able to answer to me. How are you going to finance this loss? Are you going to borrow money from a line of credit? Do you have one to borrow against? It's never a good idea to take losses for a period of time.
So, can you share a real world example where applying your profit levers framework transform a struggling business?
Sure. So, for example, um, from a profit perspective, I have had numerous clients that came to me. Their business had grown and they weren't making the profit that they deserved, that they were expecting. And as I analyzed the situation together with that business owner, we ended up seeing that they never raised their prices, that they were providing great value to their customers, and their expenses had crept up on them, Daniel, and reduced their margins. So there were certain customers that were no longer profitable. So we, instead of firing those customers, I recommended to the client to go back and have an open conversation with them and explain to them that they needed to raise their prices. And they did. 9 out of 10 clients understood why this business owner had to raise prices. And they knew that this business owner hadn't raised prices in the past. And they were able to grow their profit 30% in a year without making any new sales.
So, how do you help companies prioritize which profit lever, like pricing, ops, or product mix, etc., to pull first?
Yeah, that's a great question, Daniel. The first thing we have to do is we have to analyze the financial statement together, and that's going to determine the priority. So, for example, if you have, let's say, a manufacturing business, we figure out what should you be making, what should your gross profit margin be, and there are services in the United States that provide these metrics, so you can do what's called a benchmark. If I'm doing 2 million or $10 million a year in sales, what should my gross profit margin be? What should my expenses be, and how much can I net? And we take that benchmark and we compare it to what your financial statement is saying, and that'll show us where to prioritize. For example, is your gross profit margin less than what the benchmark is? Why? Why aren't you able to achieve it? Are your expenses higher than what your competitors are doing? Why is that? So it would lead us down several paths, um, and then we would be able to determine the priority. Because really, raising prices is one of the last things that we want to be doing. The first thing we want to do is actually take a look at the cost structure.
Mr. Manny, thank you so much for sharing that information to us. Truly empowering for all our businessmen out there or entrepreneur. How does your system balance short term profit wins with long term sustainable growth?
Oh, this is another great question, Daniel. So in my opinion, we have an emphasis in the United States on short term profits,
Yes.
uh, versus the Japanese, which the Japanese take the opposite approach. They look for long term profits.
Oh,
And if you're
yes.
constantly focusing on the short term, then what history has shown in the United States is you have a higher risk of going out of business. So there is a delicate balance. I'd like to say that with great respect. You do have expenses that you have to pay every month. So you can't take short-term losses, right? Because you're going to have a hard time financing them. But you have to balance out that the short-term profit is actually going to lead to long-term value. The two actually go hand in hand together.
Definitely. They goes together, people. And for CEO, torn
Mhm.
between growth at all costs and profitability, what's your constraint or contrarian advice?
I've had a couple of those. Um, so I believe, based on everything that I've seen in my career, that slow and steady is going to win the race. Um, Growth at all costs, which includes losing money. If you're bootstrapping your business, you could. What did you really accomplish if you started a business, grew it rapidly at all costs, and 5 years later, you lost the business? What did you accomplish? Right? You put a
Yeah.
bunch of them, your employees out of business, can't help your community anymore. What did you really accomplish? So the contrarian view is go slow, go steady, make profit every day. And that slow and steady growth is going to lead to that long term value, make you sustainable, keep you in business, and be able to take care of all the responsibilities you have.
Mr. Manny, as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Um, I kept seeing these examples over and over again, Daniel, and I just wanted to write them down and so they could be saved for future generations. Um, that was the whole reason for writing the book, because it'll be here when I'm gone, and that's the reason I wanted to do it. It was the best way to do it, and I got lucky because I was fully prepared to self-publish this book, but a publisher, Taylor and Francis, picked it up. So I have another book coming, and that'll be probably the end for me in terms of being an author, because the other book is going to explain how to make money in challenging times. And I feel that with these two books, as a business owner, you're armed with everything you need, with every eventuality that you'll face, and you can use these two books, to avoid pitfalls and be successful.
Yes, good luck to your goals, Mr. Manny, and looking forward for that book to come.
Thank you.
Please do come over and let's talk about it on Book
Mhm.
101. And what would be your advice for those people out there want to be an author like you?
I would say, persevere. Um, if you want to be an author, go for it. I was fully prepared to self publish, but it just so happened that I sent my proposal to two publishers, and actually they both accepted. So my point is, don't give up. Try to get it published through the traditional route, and if you fail there, then go to Amazon and self publish. It's very easy to do. Don't give up on your dream.
Yes, don't give up, people. Stop procrastinating. If you have the passion to write, and share to the world, like Mr. Manny. And how's your book or how's your playbook for making every employee feel responsible for profit?
Great question. Super. To first of all, it's making them feel valued, listening to the employee's opinion, and asking them what they would do if they were faced with a situation, right? They come to you and say, I have this situation. Ask them what they would do, empower them. That's number one. And number two, to have some kind of incentive compensation, some kind of bonus plan that aligns their interests, that makes it worth their while, so they can treat your business like it's theirs. Those are the two main things, in my opinion, Daniel.
Thank you for your opinion, Mr. Money, and truly empowering.
You're
How do
welcome.
you prevent profit management from becoming synonymous with cost cutting in company culture?
Uh, Another super question. So, profit management means to run the business as profitable and efficient. It means to not waste. Um, when you use, when a person uses the term cost cutting, it seems like the business perhaps was undertaking some expenses that didn't make sense anymore and they got too big and they weren't providing any type of return. So there are going to be expenses. You just have to manage them appropriately.
Yes. And what's the most controversial idea in your book that traditional finance leaders push back on?
Saving money for a rainy day. Um, you mentioned the growth at all costs. What I found based on my experience, what my teachers and mentors taught me, Daniel, is you've got to save a little bit of the money that you make every year in the company. If the company makes, $100,000 in profit, you need to save inside the company a portion of that. Don't take all the profit out of the company and take it home. That's the biggest single thing. But it's hard to
Yes,
do because people
save,
like to
yes.
inflate their lifestyles,
They
right?
want to, yes, they want to spend all their money for nonsense things. Yes, people,
That's
it's
it.
save. It's hard to save money, and we are
Mhm.
encouraging you to do so. And in an area of economic uncertainty, why is profit optimization more vital than revenue growth?
Yeah, a great question again, Daniel. It's very difficult to grow sales. It's very difficult and it's expensive. And if you're able, it's more cost effective. If you're able to just look at your own business and trim and make sure you're pricing correctly, that is more going to make you more money and be more cost effective than anything else you can do. And it's going to help you conserve cash, which you've heard the saying that cash is king, and queen when it comes to challenging times. And
Yeah.
if you get into some trouble during the challenging times, banks do not want to lend money to businesses that aren't profitable. That's the biggest singles thing that I learned in my experience.
And Mr. Manny, very well said. Very well said indeed. Can you share a story where your framework helped a business survive a crisis?
Yeah, let me think of a good one real quick. There's so many. Um, I had one business that they closed. So they generated a sale that was the largest sale in their company's history. So their factory was running around the clock to produce the orders, but they didn't have any cash in their bank account. So I was sent there to look at something completely different. And I asked them, I said, you know what? Let's take a look at this thing together and try to understand why you don't have any cash. Because that's not the reason I was sent there. I was sent there for something else. So as I dug in together with the owner, I found that they did not cost out that contract correctly. They made a mistake in pricing that contract, which caused them to win the contract, but actually now they're losing money. And they can't get out of the contract because they're going to get sued. They have to produce it. So once they figured that out, they went to the bank and had to explain to the bank what was going on. And they were lucky that the bank understood and believed in the evidence that we provided and gave them some short term money so they could fulfill this contract and not get sued and get back to their main business. This piece of business had to run off, and we managed to save the company. But they didn't know that they made a mistake in pricing it. They priced it at a loss, and their factory was running. You would go in, it would be busy, all the machines, all the employees, and they're not making any money.
And thank you for that story, Mr. Manny, and truly empowering.
You're welcome.
What surprising discovery during your research fundamentally changed the book or the book's direction?
Um, I don't think I had any discoveries really, Daniel, because these are I felt like I kept seeing the same movie over and over again when it came to business owners trying to grow their business, and I knew how that movie was going to end. So I just started writing them down. I made the book fun. It's not a textbook. It's a fun book. It has humor in it, and it just answered questions. How fast should I grow my business? Right?
Hmm.
How do I actually grow my sales? When should I get increase my office rent? When should I hire employees? These are all questions that were asked of me over time and by clients, and I just took the lessons that I was taught by my teachers and mentors, and put them in there in a fun way.
In a fun way, for sure. And Mr. Manny, before we
Yeah.
wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in its fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in its third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in each first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Manny, if you could add one chapter today of your book, what emerging profit challenge would you address?
Right now, there our costs are going up. I wish I could put a chapter in about being very careful with that, because specifically in the restaurant business, the cost of products are going up. If you have a manufacturing business, we can see for ourselves when we go into the grocery store, all our food is up 20-30%. Our insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance here in the United States is up 20 or 30%. So be very, very careful when you're doing your calculating your prices for your customers, and take that into consideration. That's a chapter that I would add. Great question, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Manny, and looking forward for your upcoming book. Please do come over and let's talk about it in Book 101 review. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world through your ultimate profit management. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Yes, it is available on Amazon.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Manny, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come, and for sure, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Manny, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. It was a lot of fun.
Monica, people, see you soon.